portion of the news brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
The Bahamas Electricity Corporation will soon have a new management team at its helm.
The corporation's executive chairman, Leslie Miller, tells Cleopatra Murphy how he expects this to boost efficiency at the corporation.
Bahamas Electricity Corporation's executive chairman, Leslie Miller, said new management at BEC will be announced within 2 weeks, and he adds that the company will not be split into two entities, as was the original plan.
In every country where that has been done, it has failed miserably. So they have moved away from that now. BEC is going to remain one entity with a new management structure, with people who has to be accountable for their actions.
Miller says he is hopeful the new management team will be able to mitigate against challenges such as blackouts that plagued the island during the summer months. With the restructuring and better efficiencies, he says Bahamians can expect a dramatic decline in operational costs. Miller says Prime Minister the Right Honourable Perry Christie hopes to see a 30% decrease by March.
What we're hoping to do, once the new team is in place, along with the board, that we would then go and get better prices on our fuel. Because right now, what we're paying is way above what we should be paying. But there's this thing called adders, where the oil companies peg their price towards Platts. And they would add on $6.80 to 1 barrel of fuel for the diesel oil.
Miller says BEC owes its supplier Shell West more than $120 million, a debt it hopes to get rid of.
The first thing the government is looking at doing is paying off Shell West. Let us go in the marketplace and get the best prices that we can get, and then we want to tie in for the next 5 years in hedging by getting prices that for the next 5 years, the Bahamian people would know exactly what we're paying for fuel for that period of time, which is going to be a tremendous savings to all of us.
To build on those savings, Miller says he hopes to reduce wastage and further reduce the millions in overtime the company pays out yearly. Cleopatra Murphy, ZNS Network News.
Arnold Forbes is expected to take up the post of Minister of State in the Ministry of Works and Urban Development next week. He leaves BAIC after leading it for more than 2.5 years. He's hoping to push alternative energy when he takes up his new post.
When I say 21st century infrastructure, I mean rather than using conventional power on anything that is built in this country, I would recommend that we use green power, solar. This building that was built under my tenure is a building that is 60–70% powered by solar energy. So I believe that, again, we are stewards of this country for our children and their children. So I believe now is the time to start moving away from fossil fuels, start looking at green energy as an alternative. We have, the Bahamas is a sunshine country. So we have the natural resources that we can use to generate energy, and I think we should start exploring these. I think that we should move away from all the conventional techniques that are being used so that we can save money. We can save money. The carbon footprint is smaller. So these are the things that we need to start looking at, and hopefully, you know, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Works will allow me to go down that road in a more significant way.
Members of the Bahamas Union of Teachers met last night to elect an appeals committee that would decide if the 6-month suspension of President Belinda Wilson and 3-month suspension of Treasurer Lorraine Knowles should be overturned. Union executives telling Janina Ferguson today that they were surprised that the pair chose to appeal their suspensions.
Acting Bahamas Union of Teachers President Zane Lightburn says suspended Union President Belinda Wilson used $1.1 million of the union's money over 4 years. He says he's confused by Wilson's appeal of the suspension after he says she initially admitted to using the funds, albeit for union causes, but in an unconstitutional manner.
We have not determined at this time that it was for personal use. They were related to union matters from what we could see. And there is a process, there is a body that governs in between AGMs is the executive committee. And even amounts that would have come out at a time on that account is even beyond the spending power of one officer. And I was disappointed that, number one, there was an appeal to it as a suspension with a full pay. I see it as basically, some persons saw it as us being soft and giving her a vacation. But when the appeal came, and you are virtually admitting that you're wrong and saying, but it wasn't a crime, but you're still going to appeal and you don't want to be punished at all, that to me is baffling.
Now, Wilson has declined to respond to these matters until the appeals committee has made a decision. Lightburn further explained that the funds comes from the union's savings and pension accounts, which were used to deposit funds only to withdraw when needed for pension payouts.
The report from the president had to be that of where we are in terms of transferring the funds to get that established, being the leader of the organization. So she had to reveal to us and admit to us what was actually in the account, that there was $1 million missing from the account.
Meantime, Union Secretary General John Musgrove says as a result of last night's election, the appeals process may be delayed because of the disappointing turnout by union members.
If the membership are adamant that they are disenfranchised in the other 3 districts, then I will have to abide by the membership wishes, and then we will have to call a special general meeting, and then that decision would be put on hold.
An area vice president for Grand Bahama, Quentin LaRota, says union members are rightfully upset.
Their feeling is rage, as they were flabbergasted and outraged that any officer, president or otherwise, would think that they could do those acts. I mean, for them it's unfathomable.
Now, the union executive said they were disappointed that some felt that this was an attack on Wilson or a move to remove her from that post. From the newsroom, I'm Janae Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
24-year-old Anthony Ferguson making his first appearance in the magistrate's court today, accused of killing Arthur Comer on Christmas Eve 2014. Police say Comer was in front of a church and not far from his mother's home in the area of Hospital and Cambridge Lanes around 2 p.m. on December 24th when he was gunned down. Ferguson was not required to enter a plea. A voluntary bill of indictment will be filed when he returns to court on March 23rd. And 29-year-old Letirio Missick claimed he was wrongfully accused today when he appeared before Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt to also face a murder charge. The Malcolm Allotment resident is accused of killing Caldron Hall 5 days ago. He was also charged with having a firearm with the intent of endangering the lives of 2 other men. Following the arraignment, Missick informed the court that he didn't commit the crimes. He also told the court he has a job and expressed concern that he would be unemployed after being placed on remand. The court noted his concerns, however, bail was denied and he was remanded to prison. The case has been adjourned.
The Bahamas Hotel Catering and Allied Workers Union filed a trade dispute at the Department of Labor today against the Melia Resort. Hotel Union President Nicole Martin noted that the action was necessary as the terms and conditions of the industrial contract is being violated by the resort as it relates to the 15% gratuity paid to workers.
The company is now taking the position that they can no longer have 15% applied on all food and beverage items. Well, the contract does allow for the parties to negotiate and come to an agreed position. Because the union has not been able to negotiate and come to an agreement within the last 11-12 months, the company has decided to pressure the union. They're not going to pay the workers all of their gratuities. I don't know if the rules have changed in this country, but if I work, I must be paid.
Business owners are tonight being warned to show VAT-inclusive pricing on products so that customers can easily access the cost of the tax price. This from the VAT Department, which is already issuing warning letters to registrants who have not done so. Authorities say those letters will be replaced with fines in a matter of weeks. VAT officials say that some businesses have made an impressive effort to comply with the new regulations, however, others have not. Cautionary letters have also been issued to registrants who may be making incorrect calculations. Consumers are entitled to refunds if the amounts identified as tax or VAT exceed 7.5%. Now, retail businesses are not allowed to disclose as taxes charges that are not VAT. The department raises this caution in light of at least one media report of a business that claims to have collected service charges instead of VAT when customers may have been led to believe that they were paying a tax. Now, the VAT department also reminds registrants that their responsibility to collect the tax started on January 1st. Now, we understand that some queries surfaced on whether motor gasoline was taxable from January 1st, but VAT officials say there was no delay in this and other cases. Consumers should also know that you cannot be charged VAT by a business that has not registered. The proof of registration is a tax identification number, which must be on all receipts. Authorities say businesses that issue VAT receipts without being registrants will face fines.
In a special series of interviews beginning Monday, Fern Carey sits down with some extraordinary women who shared their extraordinary experiences during majority rule back on January 10, 1967. One of them is Jane Adderley, a woman who worked in the trenches to ensure that majority rule became a reality. Adderley also had a front row seat when the new era was ushered in.
I think we've made some strides, but we can keep on. Don't ever feel as though you can't do it. You can do anything you put your mind to do. And I think our women should be praised and honored more than they are. And there was a lot of sacrifice. Hardly a Saturday will pass and there wasn't a cookout. Well, they never used to be as big as they are today because money wasn't, flowing. But we really helped the men. And I think the women should be happy about it. I am. We worked hard and it benefited us. And all women, I don't just think of PLP women, I think it's benefited all women in the Bahamas.
Sports Night League Volleyball highlights. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news was brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.